It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now, here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
So, Tammy, we're not talking about food at all, and we're not talking about nutrition.
We're not talking about food. We're always talking about
We're always
food.
talking about, but we are talking about clothing. The saying goes, without farmers, we'd be naked and hungry, I think is how it goes, or something like that. So this is going to be kind of fun.
Well, and we're talking about cotton, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
one of my favorites. And living here in Arizona, having these breathable natural fabrics is so
Yes.
important, especially in the summer when it's hot. I don't know if a day goes by when I don't have cotton on.
Yes. So I found out about, watched them on 60 Minutes, two Midwest farmers. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're kind of end to end. They're growing cotton and then they're making clothing. So I asked them and they were gracious enough to come on. So I'm going to launch into my introduction.
Sounds good.
So, nestled in the heart of West Tennessee's Lauderdale County, Fifth Gen Cotton Company is more than a clothing brand. It's a bold reinvention of the American cotton story. Born from 5 generations of resilient farming, founded by fifth-generation cotton farmers Franklin Carmack and Jeffrey Daniels, along with their families, the company traces its roots to a hardworking heritage that began in North Carolina. And then they kind of transitioned to the rich soils of Tennessee. And what started as a family tradition of cultivating cotton has evolved into a mission-driven enterprise that vertically integrates every step, which means from planting premium varieties like Next Gen's long staple fiber to on their own farms to harvesting, spinning, sewing, and selling direct-to-consumer apparel, all 100% grown and made in the USA. So we've got to get some of their, at least T-shirts. But now you guys are progressing, and into the future, I think you're going to expand your apparel line. And in a world of fast fashion, Fifth Gen Cotton invites you to invest in pieces that support family farms, and this is one of the ways to do it. Restore ecosystems because it's all sustainable, it's all natural fibers, and weave sustainability into everyday wear because great things truly come from their fields to your closet. So before we end the show, gentlemen, we definitely want to make sure we know where to get your cotton brand, your fabric and all that stuff. So I'm going to launch into the first question, and it's about product innovation. How do you select your cotton? And I believe you grow along staple cotton, and I know this is kind of focused on what you're doing vertically from planting the cotton to growing it, harvesting, and then making these T-shirts. So talk a little bit about the cotton itself.
So we, like I said, we plant only Next Gen cotton on our farms, and we work very closely with Next Gen and the seed rep for our area, and we look at what we can get the best grades for that will give us the cotton that we're looking for, because we're looking for a premium cotton to offer a premium garment. So we work very closely with Next Gen. We do some trials to kind of look at what's coming in the future so that we know to adjust on our operations to make sure we can have the quality cotton that we're looking for.
And that answer was answered by Franklin Carmack, one of the partners, and then Jeffrey Daniels. Anything to add to that point? So it is just this 5th gen variety, correct?
Yes, well, we plant multiple varieties. Every year is a little different, different growing season, so you don't put your eggs all in one basket. I mean, we still plant Next Gen, but even under the Next Gen cotton varieties, they still have different varieties under that. Like this year, we planted 2 different ones, 3195 and 4507,
Yeah.
4507. We do that to kind of, the 3195 has been very proven in West Tennessee, high grading and high yielding. And this year we planted the 4507, which has some characteristics of Pima cotton, very long staple. So we tried some of that because we're wanting to expand and start producing a polo next, a very high quality, very soft polo shirt, and so we wanted to try to do, and we were very surprised with the quality and the yield. The yield was actually our best cotton this year. We were kind of thinking we may trade off a little bit of yield for the premium grade, but it had just happened to be I guess the stars lined up, and the yield was our best yield and our best grades.
I'm glad to hear you say similar to the Pima cotton that's been developed here in Arizona. So yay! And are you guys still in the thick of harvest, or have you completed all your cotton picking
We've completed.
for this year?
Yes, ma'am. We're done
Okay.
for the year.
Yeah. We normally finish we hope to be finished by Thanksgiving. That's always our goal around here as far as harvesting cotton.
That's
Then it's a true Thanksgiving,
Right,
right?
Yeah.
Well, I love cotton. I love natural fabrics, and living here in Arizona, very breathable. And the other thing too is it helps really combat the polyester, plastic pollution that we see. But tell us a little bit about what you all do to be sustainable, and how you communicate that out to the public.
One is, we try to educate that, cotton's a renewable crop. I mean, as long as the sun comes up and the good Lord blesses with rain, we can grow a cotton crop. So it is very sustainable. Cotton has been grown in the United States since the 1700s. So it's been here a very long time. It's been here way before we discovered oil or started using oil the way that we use it. So, I mean, and just the way we've transitioned from the way our ancestors grew it to the way we grow it now, we went through a lot of changes, and cotton is, it is a sustainable fiber, and it's here to stay.
That's awesome. I always also like to add to that real quickly. It's very biodegradable. If you bury a male pair of underwear, it's going to disintegrate in about 30 to 60 days, and the only thing left is the waistband because of the plastic in it. So
Julie, I've never buried a male pair of underwear, so I'm glad you told me about that.
men's underwear.
Yeah. So what are you doing in
Don't
your
bury
spare
the
time?
male,
Yeah.
just the underwear.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. So Jeffrey, it looked like you were about to say something too.
Yeah.
No, that's about it. That's part of our mission, is to try to help educate the normal consumer, the everyday consumer. A lot of them don't even understand the differences between polyesters and cotton. You would be very surprised. A lot of people think polyester is a form of cotton. I've even had some people think cotton comes from sheep. You would be amazed. I don't know. I feel like the education side is getting missed in our youth by people not knowing, just not knowing, and I mean, maybe some may not even care about where their clothes comes from, and we just feel like that's important to know where your clothes comes from and what it's made of.
Yeah, there's such a small percentage of the population that works in agriculture. I work with the dairy industry, and we've done tours, and people have asked me if the dairy cows are male or female. I mean, they just didn't know that only female cows can give milk,
give milk.
So I'm not surprised that you're hearing if cotton comes from sheep. And that's one of the things we like to do with this podcast, is help educate the consumer on where their food and where their clothing comes from, so they understand a little more.
And our family grew cotton, just mom and dad, for about 45 years, and prior to that, earlier generations. And so I feel very connected to what you gentlemen are doing, and your 5th Gen Cotton Company is such an impressive effort to take it from cottonseed to final apparel. But I'm also curious, because you've been doing this, for a couple of years now?
We started last, how this started was me and Franklin's families both have been talking amongst each family. Like, I've been talking with my wife about how we can take our product direct to consumer, and Franklin and his family have been doing the same thing. And we just happened to be on a fishing trip together, fishing on the Mississippi River right here at home one summer. We kind of hit a slow spell, and me and one of Franklin's sons were talking, and we're just talking about the struggles of farming, how the current model, just selling our products on the wholesale market, to the highest bidder, just wasn't sustainable. It's not working. The cost of production is more than what we can sell our products for. And I said, we've got to figure out how to go direct to consumer, um, whether it be hats, shirts, something. We've got to do something because the current model is just not working. And and then that kind of sparked the communication amongst the two families. And then we talked about it for maybe 2 or 3 months. Every 2 or 3 days we'd talk, and we'd talk about it. And finally we said, hey, let's do it. We've got to figure out something. We don't want to sit around and just wait till we lose it all, till we figure out a plan. So we started just getting on the phone and calling people in the textile industry, and just spent a lot of hours on the phone talking. And finally, we said, "Hey, we only get one chance to make a first impression with this, so we need to." I feel like it'd be better if we just got in the truck and just drove to the East Coast and just started just checking them off, just going, meeting and greeting, shaking hands, touring the factory, see what's, to make sure that we have a good understanding of what we're doing and what we're getting into and who we're dealing with. And, we're going to have to count on these people to do a good job. And that's what we did. We loaded up, we headed to the East Coast and stayed gone about a week. And we feel like we assembled the A team in that. By the time we were done, we were tickled with our decisions that we made, and that's where we're at today.
It's such an inspiring story, and your clothing, at least your T-shirts, have been out enough. What are customers saying to you?
All positive feedback. We got our first run of shirts in for the state of Tennessee. Ordered 1,000 shirts from us for the Tennessee State Fair. That was kind of where we launched our product, on our first run, and they end up selling out of those in maybe 5 days.
The first, they done a 250th logo to celebrate the American 250th, and they only had 500 printed, and they sold out in 3 days, and then they had to run get the other 500 and get them screen printed. And we happened to be there for the beginning of the fair, and it's just rewarding to sit back and just watch people, pick up the shirts, feel of them, really looking at the quality of the shirt, and the design that was on there was pretty cool too. And then when you go up and interact with them and say, hey, did you know that shirt, that cotton was produced right here in Tennessee? I mean, it was quite rewarding to see that expression they have on their face, because most people never know where their clothes come from.
That is so true, and that is so neat that it's grown and made in the USA.
Well, I was going to say, you just being vertically integrated like that, you have more control over every step of the process. It sounds like, tell us a little bit about how that's affected. You said you have a high quality product, and I'm sure competitive wise pricing, with having control over that whole supply chain. What did you find the most surprising about that, as far as having that whole vertical integration in terms of quality and competitiveness?
The first thing is the price of the actual cotton that the apparel's made out of is the cheapest. That's the smallest part of the process, and it's we kind of knew that, but until you actually see the numbers, most t-shirts have about a pound of cotton in it. Well, today cotton's only 64 cents. So, every t-shirt you look at, it's only got 63 or 64 cents worth of actual cotton in it.
That's a premium T-shirt at that.
Yes. So that's kind of,
Wow,
yes.
I didn't realize that.
That was kind of, you kind of just sit back and think about this a minute, say, now, why is the farmer, he's getting the smallest amount of this process is the farmer, just like in other crops too. But being able to know where our yarn's being made and our fabric's being made, and where the cut and sew is, and working with those guys. And when we have an urgency, we can pick up the phone and say, look, we need this put in front of this, or just whatever. It makes it kind of unique to be able to do that.
So awesome.
Interesting.
Um, to me, because of your story, the logo itself, fifth gen, most people, I mean, and that's a play on words to me, fifth generations of farming, but there are also cotton gins. But fifth gen cotton company is going to compel me to want to find your story out. But talk a little bit more about the marketing and the branding.
All right, both mine and Franklin's family. I'm the fifth generation farmer in my family, and Franklin's the fifth generation farmer in his family. And whenever we were trying to figure out a name, we were talking back and forth. I don't even remember which one was it, me or you come up with that. Either it don't matter. But anyways, it was we just whenever we heard it, we knew it was that was it. Um, it's everything we are. So it's authentic, real. Um, I just think a lot of people would relate to it.
It tells your story immediately, but now how are you marketing yourselves? Because the retail marketing for clothing is kind of brutal.
It is. We're trying to utilize social media as much as possible. Facebook, try to grow organically. Of course, farming's our main source of income. So we really don't have just a whole lot of money for marketing, being that we farm right now. I'm sure you're aware right now is about as hard as it can get on a farmer. Um, so we're trying to, let the apparel company be sustainable within itself, because it's just no funds available hardly to pull out of the farm to drive this thing. So, we're just any opportunity we get, um, podcast, social media, any way we can utilize social media to reach customers. We're doing it, going business to business. We're hoping to be able to take our blank shirts directly to like different companies. Uh, because most of all companies furnish their employees shirts. And we would like to supply company shirts. That's one business model. Um, and then direct to consumer via our website, um, fifthgencottoncompany.com.
I was going to ask you, since we're on the marketing and branding, we should ask you where we can get it. I know you have social media presence, but if we go directly to your website, that fifthgencotton.com, is that what you said?
Fifth Gen Cotton
Cotton Co.
Company. Yeah, Cotton Co. is fifth Gen, the number 5, THGENCOTTON.com.
Okay, good.
And we'll also put that in the
Yes.
descriptor for the podcast, so it'll be written out for people so they can
Yep.
see it. But just listening to you and the quality of your product, as well as how fast it's sold out on occasions, I imagine that it's growing like crazy. Any hurdles you've had to jump as far as scaling up to additional production or labor or material costs?
I would say our biggest hurdles, getting our fabrics dyed on time. And it's just because of the process. We may have a light color that we're needing dyed, but the dye house may be doing dark colors. So they're not going to go from a very dark to a very light color. They transition slowly through the colors. So you may have a very light color that you think is going to get dyed next week, and it just doesn't happen because of the process. And we understand that, but that's been some hurdles that we've had to work through. Is not getting our fabric dyed when we thought we would.
And how about labor? Any issue? I know on this side of the country we have a labor shortage in many areas of agriculture and otherwise. How has that been for you?
On the farm, we're pretty good. We're pretty good shape. We've had, we've got most of our employees have been with us for 10 to 15 years plus. We're like a family. When you work with, a lot of times through the year we'll work 6, 7 days a week, and it just everybody becomes like a family on the farm. It's not like some jobs, and we're just we just all stick together. Seems like.
But on the apparel side, that's something that we have to learn is when it's go time, we work, like Jeffrey said, 7 days a week. Well, sometimes we expect somebody in the chain that the meal that's spinning the yarn, maybe they ought to be working 7 days a week, or the cut and sew. And that's something that we have to learn to just, hey, these people, I mean, it's not a farm, but that does become an issue sometimes because we think that they ought to be working as many days as we do, and that's just not the
They want time off.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounded like you're subcontracting certain aspects of the clothing process, the milling.
We are, yes, ma'am. Yeah, what we do is, of course, we grow the cotton, and then we send it to the cotton gin. And once it gets to the cotton gin, they pull a sample off of each bale, and it goes to the federal grader. We get classing back on it, and then the first thing that happens is our cotton buyer, Mr. David Brooks, right here in West Tennessee, he gets a list of our grades off our cotton, and then he kind of goes through there and pretty much cherry picks like whatever we're like. Just say, for instance, these polos. Our yarn manufacturer that makes the yarn, he'll actually send us some specification requirements that he's looking for to make that particular yarn, and they communicate back and forth. It's not a very complicated process. It just takes a little bit of time going through there and putting them all together, and then it goes to the yarn manufacturer. He spins the yarn, and then once he gets the yarn spun, then we have to ship it to the fabric manufacturer. So then it goes to where the fabric's made, and then they put it on the loom where it produces the actual fabric, rolls of fabric, and depending on what we're making for the pattern is going to determine the width of the roll of fabric that they're making. So like it's predetermined by our cut and sew. Hey, I need it 86 inches. I'm just using this as a rough example. Well, then they know to make that roll of fabric 86 inches to minimize waste at the cut and sew, because you don't want to waste. The whole goal is to be as efficient as possible. And then once the fabric's made, then it goes to a dye house, which whatever color that you're wanting, whether it's harvest red, graphite, deep blue, whatever, then it goes there, and then it gets dyed. And after it gets dyed, then it goes to the cut and sew facility where they essentially goes out on a big routing table and they route out the patterns: small, medium, large, extra large, 2X, 3X, 4X, whatever it may be. And then after the patterns are cut, then it goes through like an assembly line of sewers that actually are handcrafting these garments. And then after they're done, then it goes through various, at every step of the way, it goes through a line of quality control before it leaves there. The yarn goes through quality control, the fabric. After the dye house, it goes through a quality control sequence, and then cut and sew, it goes through multiples at the cut and sew before it goes to your door. So that way, when you get your garment, it's no surprises.
Right now, we're just growing the cotton, but we control every aspect. But we want it to grow to where we may end up with our own cut and sew one day, or some of these other steps we're wanting to be a part of one day.
And regardless, proving the complexity of the fabric industry, the clothing industry, it sounded like in just Jeffrey's description that there were easily 4, if not 6 critical supply chain links. And then across all of those is those quality control measures. And you thought farming was complicated, and now you're farming and into the apparel industry. So you alluded it, the two of you alluded to it earlier, that you have some ideas and some plans for 2026 and beyond. Sounds like fine men's button-down T-shirt or shirts. What else are you inspired, and is some of this influenced by what customers are asking for?
Yeah, pretty much. We don't want to be known as a T-shirt company. We want to offer a full line of apparel with denim, button ups, hoodies, socks, underwear, the whole shebang, before it's over. It's just, it's the most challenging aspect of taking your cotton direct to consumer is it takes a lot of money to, labor in America is expensive, and it costs a lot to have, when you start getting 20, 30,000 t-shirts made, the cost of production's high. The cost of the cotton's cheap, but the cost of production is pretty expensive.
And that's, like when we have people come on the farm, could be our banker, could be our crop insurance, people that, wear nicer, stuff to work. Well, most of them, 90% of them showing up on our farms with polyesters. Well, first, I don't like that. I don't want to tell them they're not welcome, but I'm almost to that point. If you can't wear cotton to come onto my
Yeah.
farm, don't come. That's what they've requested. So, we can't wear a t-shirt to the bank. Why don't y'all make us a polo? So that's, some of this. It's being driven by the consumers. Is, make us 100% breathable American-made polo shirts, and we'll buy them for the whole office.
That's great. That's great. And, for those of us that are not from the farming background and our listeners who are not, could you tell us a little bit about the different varieties of cotton and what they're best used for?
So you have upland cotton, and cotton can be, like Jeffrey's mentioned earlier. There's lots of different grades of cotton. So cotton grades can depend on what its end use will be, but cotton's in a whole lot more stuff than you realize. But like, we pick some of the best high upland cotton varieties there are because we're looking for grade. We're looking for grade better more than we're looking for yield. But when we send our cotton to the to have the yarn spun, we give up about 30% to waste to us. But then that cotton, and it's because of the quality of yarn that we're looking for. But when that what's left at the mill, it's in your medicine bottles, it's in a lot of stuff that you really don't even think about. That waste is being used. But when you get into California and more of y'all's climate, you got the Puma cotton, which is an extra long staple cotton that is really a premier cotton that we just can't grow here. It's a little bit more of a tropical climate that you need to grow it. But we do with Next Gen. They are working and trying to give us some of those characteristics and some of our varieties that will still work here.
One of the easy ways that I explain too is there's two core types of cotton. There's the short staple or a shorter fiber cotton, and then the longer fiber, which, like Japan, when they purchase our cotton for their high-end men's shirts, it's the long staple because it's real quality cotton. But what I'm learning from Jeffrey and Franklin is that your 5th gen cotton variety, you're trying to get it to a little bit more of that maybe long staple for those fine men's polo shirts or dress shirts or whatever. That is so cool. I'm cheering you on. Of course, I'm always going to be biased, being a native Arizonan, that we have such a high quality Pima cotton, that long staple. But that's the easiest way to kind of explain it to people, is that there's that short staple and that long staple, and that all relates to the length of the fiber.
So if the fiber is longer, is it more durable or is it
Yes.
softer or?
Yeah.
See, on our t-shirts, and one of the reasons why we have the amount of waste that we have is it's a combed, it's ring spun, but it's also been combed. And when I say combed, what it does is it removes the short fibers to where we're only left with long fibers, and that's what allows you to produce a very durable but lightweight, soft, cool T-shirt. That's and maybe with the Pima varieties, it may be where there could be less waste because there's not as many short fibers to be removed.
And literally, it's almost like a combing out. And I used to do it by hand just before. You'd see the weavers comb out the fibers and then spin it. It's just amazing. So I'm going to ask a policy question related to what's just been released by the current administration on what they're calling those bridge payments. But the first thing I want to ask, is is all of your cotton going into Fifth Gen Cotton Company, or are you still selling some of your cotton on the commodity market?
Yeah, we're still selling some. We haven't reached a point yet to where we can utilize all of our cotton. We're hoping one day to get there, though. That's the goal.
So what I wanted to ask you, because knowing, and I'm calling it the perfect storm, high costs for production, low commodity prices, trade wars, it's the perfect storm. I mean, this year, last year, some of our, actually the last 3 or 4 years has been some of the hardest times in farming economically. So this bridge program that was just announced last week by the USDA, the administration, is an effort to kind of bridge one-time payment to get us into, once some of those other programs kick in and or the one big beautiful bill, some of the tax reduction kicks in. So are you guys going to take advantage of this one-time bridge payment?
Yes, we really don't have a choice, unfortunately, but it's kind of a slap in the face, if you want to be honest, this bridge payment. We're still not addressing the problem. And everybody wants to keep harping on exports. We've lost exports to South America. We're not getting them back. We've got to have demand here in the U.S. That's going to fix our problem. Just like corn, we're hoping to get E15 passed by the end of the year. Why can't there be something with cotton? If you're going a certain percent of cotton that's in all apparel in this country, we're doing it with corn. Why can't we do it with cotton? But the policymakers in D.C. want to keep talking about exports. The exports are gone. We're not getting them back. South America,
especially in
whipped
agriculture.
us.
Yeah.
So look, we've got to find uses for our crops here in the U.S. And that's, we're not even, we don't even produce enough food to feed ourselves anymore. And a lot of people don't realize this. 60% of our fruits and vegetables are imported.
Yeah, wow. One thing we talk, why are there not any government programs to help incentivize fruits and vegetable production? The way is everything is structured is strictly around is kind of forcing farmers to produce cotton, corn, beans, and wheat. And if we're needing all this other stuff, I mean, of course we are. We're eating. As long as we're eating, you're going to eat fruits and vegetables. Why not? And it's. I mean, we can't even get insurance. Like if we decide we wanted to grow strawberries, and then Franklin's a good example. His family's been growing strawberries a long time, and you probably couldn't even get insurance or no kind of
help. And it makes me think of the one story that a cotton farmer here in Arizona recently said. Think about if you had a customer that was 35 to 40% of your business, they went away and they're not coming back, especially in the exports. And I think in agriculture, it's a lot more significant than what people realize. And we turned a huge turning point about 3 or 4 years ago where we're almost importing more than we're exporting. We used to be a net exporter of our American agriculture. That changed about 3 years ago. And I heard that from our Arizona Farm Bureau president, John Bolt. So, it's things like what you're doing is helping us make a difference. So we're cheering you on.
Thank you.
Having been farmers ourselves, we know how tough it is. Those tough years, especially as tough as these years are, they kind of they need to go away, or else we won't see our farmers. I won't have as many farmers to bring to you. And I say that with a hopeful note, but I'm telling you, it's tough times.
I know.
Yep.
It is, and costs.
One other thing I want to mention about cotton. The U.S. is one of the top 2 consumers of cotton in the world, the U.S. and China. We consume, on average, around 18 million bales in this country. We produce between 13 and 14 million bales in this country. But yet, we have a carryout of cotton every year.
And a lot of that, I think, goes back to, and the average person don't know this, but like when you get a shirt, a lot of shirts and all apparel that is produced overseas, a lot of it is produced with like forced or slave labor. So that's why a lot of manufacturing companies are leaning overseas is to get their profit margin up. They may have shareholders or whatever, and that's why. It's not because they probably don't want to do it here. It's they can get it produced a whole lot cheaper with like forced or slave labor. So
I
Well,
know it's sad because
yeah.
I know, we have all these rules and laws and things in place, to protect labor here, but yet they'll buy something from outside the US and not even think about it.
Yeah. And we have no idea what they're doing with their labor there.
and how their cotton's produced, it's probably not produced. Who's to say it's produced near as safe as ours? There's probably zero regulation. You have really no idea what you're getting. Even if you're wearing cotton, if it ain't U.S. cotton, there's probably very little, if any, regulation on like what they're allowed to spray on the crop, how it's how it's manufactured. Um, it's a lot of questions that a lot of people probably should have and just don't even know.
They just don't.
Sustainability practices.
Yes.
And I know too, as part of growing cotton, you have to continue to maintain the soil quality, and there's a lot of things consumers don't understand about that. What all do you do as far as regenerating the soil and keeping the quality of the soil intact? What do you need to do that?
We're 100% no-till. We don't work any ground up. We try to utilize as much natural fertilizers as possible. Franklin's probably over 50%, maybe more than that on his cotton with chicken litter.
Yeah.
We only fertilize off of soil samples to where we're not over fertilizing. We also we have a scout that actually checks our cotton every week. Of course, we don't want to spray no more than we have to. Everything wants to eat on a cotton plant bug wise, so we have to kind of monitor that.
We both are highly users of cover crops
Cover
because
crops, big
cotton don't, it's not it don't have a lot of, um, what's the word?
ground holding
Yeah,
vegetation. We plant on 38-inch rows, so it's a lot of,
open space.
yes, for water to run, erosion.
Yeah.
So
And another part about West Tennessee that a lot of people don't realize, West Tennessee is one of the most highly erodible farming communities in the country. So we actually adopted no-till in the 90s. And then we had to do it to save our soils because we're so highly erodible. We average about 50 inches of rainfall a year, and most of the times that's in the spring and in the winters. Very little that's in the summer. But I mean, it's a lot of washing that goes along with that 50 inches of rain.
Wow. And I would assume too, keeping that soil intact and in high quality affects the final product too, correct? The high quality product comes from high quality
Yes,
soil.
yes. Your soils have an impact on the grades of the cotton that you get.
because the more organic matter we introduce back into the soil, the more moisture holding capacity it has, and so on and so on. It's just a healthier. The biology in the soil is healthier, more microbes growing, releasing free. We call them free nutrients back to us. Which like when we do cover crops. Once as it rottens, it's decom. There's a lot of natural fertilizer in the soil. The problem is it's not very usable to the plant. So that's one reason why we implement a lot of cover crops, because it will actually extract some nutrients that's there, and then as the soil biology starts breaking those down, it releases it back into the soil as in a usable form to our cotton.
And it also is really effective on our yields. The healthier the soil, the more
Better the
cotton you
yield.
grow per acre, which is our system of measurement in agriculture.
I just wish we could find a way to take some of that extra water you've got and bring it out here, and so we're all on equal
Yeah.
ground.
And see, actually, our seed that we actually plant, it's grown in Arizona. As far as for cotton seed, that Next Gen Americot's an American, 100% American owned company, and their seed production, one of the places is in Arizona.
Thank you, Franklin, for mentioning that, because Arizona is a great place to grow a lot of quality seed for actually a lot of crops, and one of those is cotton. So it's amazing. I appreciate you bringing that up. And the other thing I like to highlight, our listeners might appreciate, because this is one of the things people don't really realize. Cotton is a fruit because the seed is inside the cotton boll. Well, like us, now granted, we don't eat cotton like a fruit. We use
Not
the
a cotton
fiber,
mouth. Okay.
but bugs love it because it's a fruit. And
Yeah.
I heard at one time anywhere from 40 to 50, and especially in other countries that don't have such a as effective of a pest management integration program like we do, where, by the way, we're not just using chemicals. There's all sorts of very sustainable methods that we use, but something like 40 to 60 different insects will attack their cotton plants. So it's a process, and I noticed that you had mentioned that earlier, just everything that works against cotton, because a lot of things are a fan of it, including we as people for fiber. But your story is fascinating. Let's mention again for our listeners where they can go to buy your T-shirts, and in the future, a wide range of apparel.
Sure, it's fifth, the number 5, THGENCOTTONCO.com. And I've got one of our shirts here. I was going to show you a little bit about it. On the front, of course, this is one of our shirts here that we have made. But if you'll notice right there, there's a QR code at the bottom. You scan that QR code and it'll carry you directly to our website. And we have like in-field videos of us actually growing the cotton, and also a seed to shirt documentary. That way people can kind of see what goes into actually producing apparel.
I went to your website and I loved it. And just another real quick way for just Google 5th Gen Cotton Company and it will come up. So again, your brand representing you as partners, both 5th generation, and you're growing cotton, you're doing it end to end. There's vertical integration. This is an amazing story, and we are working to help you get this story out. So we'll include your website in the subject description. And the only final thing I'd say is, for the person inspired listening to this episode, what are some things that you would encourage individuals to do besides wearing more cotton?
So I want to bring up a couple of more uses that get overlooked about the cotton. The seed, the oil out of the cotton seed is in makeup. Didn't know if y'all realized that. And also, the cotton seed plays a huge part in the dairy industry as far as protein. A lot of our cotton seed, that's where it goes, is to the dairy industry. So we're thankful for the dairy industry to need the cotton seed, and we're also thankful for the ladies that like to wear makeup, because that's one of the byproducts, of the cotton is the seed and the oil in the seed.
And is it not true that the cottonseed oil is still used by chefs who like a higher flash point, and it actually has a lot of nutritional value? It's one of the good
Right,
fats.
that is correct. It
Yes.
Yeah, which most people
right.
don't
It has
know.
a higher flash
Yep.
point than peanut oil. So yes, that is true.
Oh. And if I'm a chef and I want that high flash point, you can appreciate this as a nutritionist, Tammy, then cottonseed oil, I might select that over olive oil, because the higher flash point, olive oil starts burning.
Right.
So,
Right. Correct. And for frying.
yeah, so there you go, cottonseed oil. What else? What else is a takeaway for us?
When you're going out, you're looking to buy new clothes. Look in the tag. See what if it's cotton, if it's polyester. Be aware of what you're putting on your skin for most of the part of the day. We know our skin absorbs stuff that it shouldn't. I mean, you can get cancer from the sun, so our skin's absorbing what we're wearing. Pick a natural fiber. Pick cotton.
Another thing, another way to look at it also, if you look at fuel prices, think how high fuel prices is. But when you buying polyester, all you're doing is creating more demand for fuel. They're utilizing oil to produce polyester. So, if you the more polyesters you buy, the more demand we're creating for oil, the higher our gas is going to be at the pump. If everybody would jump on board and say, "Oh, I'm only wearing cotton," price of fuel within a year probably be $1 a gallon. I mean, I don't know that that's right, but it's possible.
It's possible. The National Cotton Council
Let's
just lau-
hope.
yeah. The National Cotton Council just launched a new program where they're trying to promote cotton and natural fiber and moving away from some of the synthetic fibers that have, unfortunately kind of exceeded demand. But we used to this is a little story for you two gentlemen. In my own life, for 20 years, my mother and I worked with a lot of the Cotton Belt states and the women with the National Cotton Women's Committee under the National Cotton Council. We went all over the country, and our logo, our theme was grown and made in the USA when we first started. Then with so much offshoring happening, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, we kind of gave up that theme, and we then converted to Cotton Counts. But here's my heart, because I see it in the 5th Gen Cotton Company. I'm trusting that reshoring is coming back to this country, and I'm believing there's going to be more textile manufacturing and maybe some other manufacturing that we've never seen before. So be of good courage. I'm your cheerleader, and I'm going to go to your website and buy your T-shirts, and I'm going to watch that apparel line, especially when you start adding more women's clothing.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
We'll be looking for the women's clothing.
Yeah.
But cotton, particularly in these hot climates like in Arizona or in the hot, humid climates, I mean, it's so breathable. The natural
Yes.
fabrics are very breathable and so much more comfortable. So we'll be pushing cotton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you, Franklin. And let's stay in touch.
Will
Thank
do. Thank y'all. We appreciate you having us on with y'all today.
Hashtag wear more cotton.